Today we have Mike Nash on the Elite Golf Podcast. My name is Matt Christian, if you don't know me. And Mike's he's a friend of mine, but he came in about 4 years ago for a golf school. I think it was a 3-day golf school. You had trained online, I believe, prior to that, before coming in. Is that correct?
Yeah. I needed to fire up my iPad a bit more often though, because oh man, when I think back to how bad my swing was, you know, and in my mind I thought this is pretty good, but oh man, things have changed, thankfully. I think that's the one lesson, I've got to say, that's the one lesson. I think it took me a while for the penny to drop. But I think the very first thing you taught me was you've got to get your iPad out, you've got to video it, you've got to see what's going on. You know, the difference between feel and real. And I was like, yeah, okay. And then it took me about a year before the penny dropped, and
Yeah, and I know you've done some really good things since, and you know, sometimes, you know, you can work through it online. We do some stuff on there, and you try to get the language right. And then, you know, like you saw that, it's like, well, if you think I'm exaggerating, you know, when I'm talking about it online, you can only imagine what I would be, you know, as you know, and felt it, how much different it was, like how much more I pushed that than you probably might expect when you come in and train hands-on. That's the one big difference for sure.
Oh, no totally, doubt. Yeah, totally.
So if you don't mind, just give everybody your, you know, that's listening here, your background, and then we'll go from there.
Well, yeah, okay. So just to kind of cut to the chase, so I run a website in the UK called the Aggressive Health Shop, and it's kind of inspired by, this is the book I wrote, you know, oh man, a million years ago, it seems like now 15 years ago, the same title, Aggressive Health. And I suppose what's interesting when I go right back in time, in fact, I've got a couple of props here, when it comes to health, and I know we spoke before about doing something for your guys on performance for golf, you know, how it can cross over to performance for golf. My sort of first inkling into the importance of health came when I played football or soccer, as your guys call it, for a team who's currently in the Premiership, so Norwich City Football Club. So I'll just quickly show you guys. So this is, I don't know if you can see that, but that's me there in the middle. And this was when we was out in Sweden. This is way back. Like this guy over here, that's the Scotland goalkeeper. This was the reserve goalkeeper for Norwich City. So it's kind of interesting because back then it was a bit kind of like, you know, you go from playing for your local team to then playing for, you know, for, I don't know, like an elite team. And it was like whatever they said, you know, I was like bowing down. I'll do it. Whatever you tell me to do, I'll do it. And they give this checklist of all these things to stop eating. So stop drinking fizzy drink, stop eating sweets, stop eating, you know, cakes and crisps, you know, fry, all that sort of stuff. And what was interesting at the time, I was like everyone else. I was like a little spotty teenager, and I stopped doing all these things. And then I got this nickname, Babyface, because all my spots cleared up, everything just cleared up. And I was kind of like, I suppose, a glowing, you know, model of health as a teenager. And I always remember thinking, blimey, you know, like you make a few changes in what you eat, and it can impact everything. You know, I mean, back then when you're a teenager, you don't really worry about your energy levels so much because you've got an abundance of it. But that was always something that sort of stuck in my mind. Anyway, to kind of continue the story on, when I was sort of studying at school, my dad, who lives in Canada, he came over and he gave me this book when I was 17 called The Habits of Highly Effective People by Stephen Covey. And it kind of took me from a world where I'm just looking at stuff to do with school, you know, the basic school stuff. And I've gone over and immediately I'm looking into this other world of kind of like peak performance and, you know, putting your mind to things and all that kind of stuff. And from there, I got really interested in the work of Tony Robbins. I'm sure you guys have heard of Tony Robbins. And I went on his Firewalk seminar when I was 18. I was so kind of blown away by it. Mine, you know, like, brainwashed by it, if you like. I went over to Canada, and I think a year later I was working for his promotions company just outside of Ottawa. So I got to see this kind of world of this weird world that, you know, like a few years ago I didn't even know existed. Anyway, so I got fascinated with hypnosis and hypnosis for performance. I got fascinated with something called neuro-linguistic programming and studied those up to kind of master practitioner level. But I was also, at the time, I was working in a health club. I've got my American College of Sports Medicine health and fitness instructor's exam, or thing, which looking back is not really a big deal. It sounded good at the time. So I had all these little, like, different tracks going on. I've got like hypnosis and the mind stuff. I've got NLP. I've got nutrition. Then I've got the fitness side of things. And as time went on, I just kept flicking between all these different sort of elements. And I ended up working for a guy who did a lot of business development, actually in the hairdressing industry. And we met on an NLP course with a famous hypnotist called Paul McKenna, who we was on this course with him for a year. And I worked for him, and I started working with a lot of his clients. So we would do these hypnotic inductions, and we'd get people to just really get themselves really like feeling as good as they possibly can. That was really what it was about. It's like, how can you feel as good as you possibly can so that you can go out into the world and be as effective as you possibly can? And we all know what it's like when we've had Christmas dinner or Thanksgiving dinner, where the only thing you can think of is falling asleep on the sofa. So the whole gist of everything really was, what can you do to feel as good as you can, as much as you can? So there was nutrition, there was obviously exercise. We put a lot of time into hypnosis and, just not really getting people to do things like a hypnotist does, bark like a chicken and stuff like that, but getting them to really explore what are the states of mind that allow them to get the best out of themselves. And for everyone, it can be different. Some people, they want to be in like a Zen-like, state, I suppose, on the golf course. Other people play better when they're a bit more, I don't know, they're a bit tetchy and a bit aggressive, and they play better maybe when they're behind and they're fighting back. And so everyone's kind of different. And it was just really fascinating back then. Wasn't really working with golfers so much, but we did work with a couple of tennis players who were a really good level, never like Wimbledon standard, but a very good level. So it was really interesting talking to those guys. And it's funny actually, because those days were kind of the fun days. And then, I kind of eventually in everyone's life, you're like, right, I've got to make some money now. And that's when, I wrote this book, and then I spoke to some marketing guys, and they said, well, look, Mike, you're not going to make money from a book. You're going to have to sell some products. And I knew there was a certain ranges of products that, that people were kind of interested in my kind of niche. And so I started working on the business, and I've spent more time really focusing on that than I have, kind of working one-on-one with people like I did maybe, 15, 20 years ago. And then interestingly, from a lifestyle perspective, and this kind of brings it back to golf, is that I was never one for wanting to make millions and millions of pounds. I was like, look, I just want to make enough that I can pay my bills and get out on the course and play golf. And funnily enough, I believed back when I was like late teens that I could get to scratch. I've never got to scratch. I'm 45 this year, but I still think it's possible. And I don't know, man, I'm like caught in this bubble. It's like this 20-year bubble of trying to figure things out. And it's been a fascinating journey. And a lot of it has been, really unwinding a lot of things, I suppose, tension that I packed into my body at an early age through weight training, that kind of stuff. So I've spent a lot of time with my movement coach, who you would actually get on great with. And I think all your viewers would love to hear from if at all possible in the future. But really unwind a lot of those patterns, explore, freeing up movement so that, when someone gives me an instruction and says, try this movement out, there's no tension in the body. I can access the movement more easily. And subsequent to that, and working with you and some other people that I've been, kind of working with over the years, my golf game's, pretty tidy, or it's getting a lot better, should I say. It's definitely not where it needs to be from my standard. So yeah, I mean, that's kind of a bit of a background in terms of then targeting into the viewer, like, what it is that, what could I share with them to help them think more about their own health and their own performance. We can go down that avenue, but that's kind of a little background into me.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, that's what we want. And, there's all these different, with golf and even soccer, any of those, just about every sport has all these different maybe disciplines inside of it. With golf, when I say that, I can only speak to golf really. But, we have, of course, with your ball striking, but, You have your wedge play, you have putting, you have pitching, you have chipping, you know, you have scrambling or curving the ball. You have all these different things, trajectory changes. And that's just one. Those are just a few. I mean, you can go on with all the disciplines if you start getting out on this golf course, because it just starts changing and what lies do what, and you got fast lies, slow lies, everything in between, unknown lies, buried lies. You got you're standing sideways, hitting this way, and you know, whatever it may be. We have all these disciplines, and so you know, you start to just kind of chip away at all these disciplines, and I think a lot of sports have it. To me, it's like mixed martial arts golf is, but it's not without. You don't have to worry about somebody taking your head off and teeth out every day, but it is like that as far as you can't just be. You know, you need a good base or whatever that's going to be. I still believe in our base is still ball striking first, and the reason why I say that is because I can give you 0 putts today. And if you get on the first hole, let's say you hit 14 tee shots and every one of them goes out of bounds or in a ditch or wherever. It's not going. Your putting stats are not going to make much difference. Now, fast forward, and common sense prevails because, like, say, well, you know, oh, you drive for show and putt for dough. That's go out and hit it out of bounds every hole. I'll give you 0 putts, and let's just see what you shoot. And I would do it with Tiger Woods. And it'd be different than most people, but it still wouldn't be any good. But you still got to retain it. If you keep hitting it out of bounds, you're going to run out of golf balls and so forth. So my point is with all that is, you don't drive for show. You drive for position. Greg Norman was the king of that back in the day, and you know, you got in the players now. It is amazing. You got Roy McIlroy. He drives the ball. I use guys from the older generation because that's what I watched grow up. Greg Norman seemed like light years ahead of everybody, driving the ball day in, day out. Dan Poole would have been another one that could really go at it and hammer it and keep it. But now you got Dustin Johnson, Roy McIlroy. Those two just come off, and Brooks Koepka. And it's not just stops there. It's not like those three can only do it. There's a big old list that can drive it. So it starts there. Because I'm telling you, if you take any of those players I just named and throw them 60 yards right and left of the fairway all day long, you wouldn't even know their name. It wouldn't be on the tour. So it starts. I still believe it starts in ball striking. I don't think you need to start necessarily with the driver. As anybody knows me, as you know, I start with a sand wedge and teach really about a 30 to 50 yard shot and progress upwards, because you're really doing the same type of swing. You just get, you know, a 30-yard shot might be here to here, and it's a little. You know, you might have a John Daly. The 30-yard shot for him might be like this, but you know, it does that huge decel and flips it perfect. But in a normal world, you know, it might be from here and here, and then a 50 is about half or whatever in general. And then if you got there, you're only at that point. Think about it. If you're hitting that 50-yard shot with a sandwich right on the button, you're only about that far away from having your full swing developed. You know what I mean by that? You know, Jason Duffner does a pretty good job of ball striking, and his swing's not much further than that right there. And there's a lot of other ones. Koepka's he's not all the way back with all his clubs. And there's a lot. And it's, to me, I don't look at length of swing being a big deal. If you can hit the ball solid and wrap it around your neck, and you put the ball where you want to put it, fire away. Just most people don't do a very good job with that. Is what I would say. So there's a progression with ball striking, and then you start to say, all right, for me, what's most important and this is it's just an opinion. So, you know, somebody's going to go, oh, he's, and that's okay. I'm a big boy. It's not a big deal. I can tell you, if you live in my world, what I've seen, driving is number 1, and then 2 and 3 are tied, and that's pitching the ball and putting. Pitching the ball is different than chipping, and I'll just make it real simple when I talk about that. Chipping is like a putt. Anybody can do it. I made a video about that. I mean, a putt, you can just pop it and it runs. A 5-year-old can take their right hand and just tap the ball and run it up there, you know, from 30 feet and do that. They cannot do that same thing when the ball's sitting right here and they've got a bunker right here 20 yards in front of 10 yards in front of them. They got to go up and down and stop at a very short distance. So what I see in the real world, in golf schools, or people come to me or whatever it may be, and people just play golf, they start trying to hit these pitch shots, and it's playing ping pong. Remember the first time I really started doing playing lessons, one of it was I took that shot for granted. I remember as a teacher, I learned a lot that day, because I was like, man, we've done so good. You got a 400-yard hole here. You basically hit, let's just make it up, 250. You hit it 150, all right, in this, you know, this area, a tough hole. And then from 15 feet, it takes you 6 shots. You know, you just made an 8. So it was like, if I put them around the chipping area, they might make 3 or 2. They might even hole out. But if I put them in weird positions, like awkward positions where I was seeing scratch players, guys like myself, and far better, but when I would put them in weird, awkward situations, you would start seeing that scoreboard get jacked real quick because they would do really dumb stuff. Because once they got fear because they couldn't hit the shot, then the mental game starts to kick in. They know they can't. The worst feeling in golf is the shot you don't know how to hit. The worst shot in golf is the one that has an adverse effect on the next shot. That's a Paul Berkeley line. I stole it, but that's just the way it is. But the worst feeling in golf, and anybody that's ever played long enough, is when you get over a shot and you have no idea what's going to happen. Like this, don't know how fast the slide is going to come out. I have no idea where the ball is going. It might be off the tee box. It might be in a bunker. It might be in deep grass. But the worst feeling over a shot in golf is like having no idea what's about to happen. So that happens with these amateurs, the higher handicaps. And that was the biggest gap I saw was pitching. You could even say pitching. I can't say it's better than driving because if you give yourself, if you can drive it. I had a coach tell me one time, I was down in Florida. I was down around Panama City. He was a great coach, an elderly guy. And he was teaching me, he said, son, if you can learn how to hit the ball about 250 to 70 yards, hit every fairway, which is not realistic, but he went on about that. But think about it, you're giving yourself a chance to par every hole in the golf course, essentially. You're giving yourself a chance. But one of those flies south in somebody's house over here, over there, or you stay there and all these quirky shots, one's going this way, one's going that. You're not playing golf, you're just scrambling. And and so that meant a lot to me is like, and if you watch great players, great ball strikers, they keep that ball in front of them. They think and doink it, even if they're long or short, they keep that ball in front of them. So driving's still always going to be number one for me. Ultimately, my goal is to get all my players to drive it, pitch it, and putt it. And everybody goes, well, what about the irons? Well, if you can get your driver right, and you get your certainly slap a 7-iron or 6-iron. That's probably what you're going to be having into the green or whatever anyway. Maybe a wedge. Certainly keep it around, hopefully around 10 or 15 yards from the green. Then if you pitch up like you're supposed to be able to 4 or 5 feet, and you putt good from 6 to 8 feet, there's your numbers right there.
Yeah, it's interesting you talk about putting because there's actually something that I hadn't mentioned to you yet, Matt, because I tend not to like to talk about things until they're completed. But it was something that you said to me in our when I came over 4 years ago, and it always sort of stuck with me. And obviously, like some things, it takes some time for the penny to drop. But I remember you saying to me, we was on the greens, and you said, you were talking about when you played your best golf, and you said, I can't think of the direct quote, but it was something along the lines of, you didn't really care how far the ball went past the hole, but that ball was going to get to the hole. And, and you were just aggressive. I remember you talking about that. And interestingly enough, there's a group of guys that I play with, as you know, every day. We play every day, Monday to Friday. And then sometimes competitions at the weekend, but every afternoon at the same time. And, we all go through our spells of playing really good and then not playing so great. But we're always, whenever it comes to the greens, anytime someone's short, we're always like, what percentage chance has that ball got of going in the hole? Like 0. It's always got 0. And so we kept talking about this concept. And I was like, so what's the percentage of the chance of the ball going in the hole if you hit it past the hole? And it's like an impossible question to answer. But the answer is always better than 0 because there's always a chance it's going to go in. So you've got 2 options. You've got, do you want a 0% chance of that going in, or do you want a better than 0 chance? And so what this ended up leading to, this was about 18 months ago, is I contacted a company. I can't say too much about it just yet because it's only just about to come out. But I've developed like a little tracking device where on the green, you just track whether you've hit the ball past it, and then if you get the return putt. And that effect to me, I know this might sound really simplistic to people, but to me that is like, that's maximum putting efficiency, and that all sort of came from you. If you get a ball past and you get the one back, you can't do any better than that apart from get the first one in. And we've got to the end of the rounds before, and I've said to the guys, so what's your because we have like a way of talking about it. What's your stat for that? And people are like, I don't know. And like at the end of the round, nobody can tell you how many putts they left short because nobody's tracking it. Whereas, you know, and so I put this, I mean, I can kind of show you here, actually. It's got a bit of a scribble over it. In fact, it's a real mess. Yeah, you probably can't even make it out, which is not a bad thing because, but it's a device, and we'll have to talk about it. I'll talk to you more about it afterwards, Matt, because I'm putting together a short book about it. You're the first person in the book I talk about because you're the inspiration that it came from. And I know people probably think this is some kind of setup, but we genuinely haven't spoke about this before. But I had an email come back from the manufacturing or the design team saying it's almost ready. We have to put it on an app for you to test. But I think it's going to revolutionize the game, especially for like middle level players, because it's going to say to them, look, like, I mean, I've watched golf, like you play as much as I do. Usually watch golfer after golfer after golfer. And what's interesting, you see them roll a ball and it's short, and you see, and I see like people will go, oh, great roll. And it'll be like an inch short. And I'm thinking, that's not a great roll. That had a 0% chance of going in. Zero. Doesn't matter if it's an inch from the hole or a foot from the hole. And I watch how they react to that. Or if they hit the ball past the hole, some of them are like, oh my God, I've hit it like 2 foot past. And I'm like, but it had a chance to go in. And you see people's psychology kick in. And I just thought, there's nothing better from a putting perspective than to track total. I call it the psychology of efficient putting. And it's just tracking your first putt. If it's short of the hole, you know, it doesn't register. If it's past the hole, it registers with a percentage. If you get the next one back in, that registers as well. And you have a main stat in the middle, and then you have another stat, which is like your return putt percentage, your RPP. And and it's you know, we've got the what do you call it? We've got the patent for it, and it's just going to be on something that you can have in your pocket. It's going to be a ball marker. And so you just go swipe, and at the end of the round, you can see if you've left 50% of your putts short. And real simple stuff. But again, it was inspired by that lesson we had, and by you telling me that when you was playing your best, you would ram in it, everything, you know?
Yeah. Hold on just a second. We'll go in here. I'll take just a second. It won't take very long. You know, with putting, the one thing that when I talk about aggressive putting, especially when you've got those green light specials where you have, you know, you got a backboard, say you're putting uphill, you know, and you got to ask yourself the question. What people need to ask themselves the question is, how long, which putt takes longer to get to the hole, when you putt downhill or uphill? Right there, it starts. That player is going to start thinking. You'd be shocked at how many players are going to say downhill gets the hole faster when you putt than uphill. And it's not. It all goes faster up the hill.
Yeah.
And so there's always been these different philosophies of how many inches past 12, 17, whatever number you want. And the thing is that there's no such thing. I'll tell you why, because if you go to Augusta National, if your goal is 17 inches past the hole every single time and you're putting out there, good luck. You're going to be going home on Friday afternoon on the way out. But
that's the exception, right? Augusta's got to be the exception. Surely in, you know, like thousands of...
I mean it here too. So when I say that, I mean it. I don't care where. I use Augusta because I love Augusta. I don't care if you play out here. I don't care where you play golf. If you're putting on a severe downslope or side slope, your ball cannot come in the same rate of speed as it comes in going up a hill or flat. It can, but you're going to have a lot of spit outs. You're going to have a lot of lip outs. Your mind has to change. I teach aggressive putting, and the reason why I teach really aggressive putting is because it gives you sometimes being streaky is better than being just not, you know, kind of a limp-wristed putter where you just lag it up there and it runs around the edges and you tell your buddies you missed 10 putts that day. But a lot of it was because you just didn't have the courage or the knowledge to get it there, you know. But you got to know when and where to do it. And you know, you may get stuck on a side slope and the greens are rolling a 12, and it could be a 3-footer, and that's probably not a good time to hammer it. So you're going to have about 20 coming back.
Yeah.
So when and where. The strategy of putting is very much different than the technical aspect of putting. And so that's what I always do. I talk about you want to develop line first, hit your line. We'll talk about speed later. It's like iron play on the tour. Like I was saying earlier, they already drive it well. They already putt well. They already pitch well. Okay, so now we're past all that. But that's the baseline. Then it becomes about iron dispersion. How close can they get their iron dispersion from the hole because of the math of the stats? When you get out certain, the average dispersion on the hole most weeks is somebody that's playing great is around 30 feet for birdie. That means their average putt is 30 feet for birdie. So most people don't realize that because they never looked up the numbers, but just look dispersion from the hole, PGA Tour, and you'll see. So they're having to make putts from a long distance. So there's a number there that's very important from around 15 to 30 feet is a huge number. 15 to 25, in my opinion, but is a huge number on the tour. But again, that's the tour. Out here, it's a lot different. You really need to be a good short range from 6 to 8 feet. Get that down first. But most importantly, know the wind strategy. So you learn how to hit line first. You do speed drills second, and then you do what we call combo drills, which is line and speed. So that, like, the better player, the better ball striker you become, you're going to miss more left and more right of the flag in general, because you're going to have distance control because your ball striking is getting better. When you start having those putts, most of the time, not always, but most of the time, those are going to be that line and speed putt where they might break a foot or two. And those are the most difficult by far because you're dealing both with line and speed. You make one mistake or the other, you're not making that putt. So that's why we kind of go in order. And then after that, we go to strategy putting. Strategy putting, everything from reading the greens, evaluating everything as you're walking in from 50 yards away, to observing creeks and bunkers and runoffs and everything else, water flow, where it's going and draining. You get into all that. That's strategy putting, along with when to be aggressive and to go after it. And you don't want to be silly aggressive, but and there's not a number when I look at that. It's just like it's a feel thing. Because, when I putt downhill, and this is a personal thing, it's not for everybody, but when I putt downhill, if it's even don't care if it's a slow green, it's going to be fast if it's tilted like this. But I'm saying I'm on there. My target might only be to hit it here and then let the ball dribble out to wherever it goes. And hopefully that thing stops in a little small circle. If it goes in, that's great. Going uphill the opposite way, it's more, I upbeat my tempo more. You'll see a lot of pros do that. They'll change their tempos and they don't really know they change. So they might go more upbeat going, up that hill, and then they take that finesse, a little more rise angle as well as they go downhill. And that helps, it gets more into like strategy putting. But I like what you're talking about. And yeah, you know me, I like people to be aggressive because the game has changed so much that way. The putting has gotten so much better over the last 20 years, and driving. Probably everything in general. I'm not talking about the tour, just the amateur. But the driver's a lot easier to hit when you teach golf for a living. And putting with Science and Motion Lab, there's a lot of technical aspects, but there's still that last little thing, that sweet science, which is taking the technical aspects out at a certain point and really good feel and strategy. And I find that if you don't win very often in golf, you spend your whole life losing.
Yeah.
His winning percentage is very, very low relative to any other sport. It's lower than anybody. It's not even close. He's the best. He and Jack are the best, and they're both of their winning percentages of what they can do are how many tournaments they played in. Their percentage is very low, and so when you look at something like that, you got to say, well, you don't want to be dumb when you play or play the game, because neither one of those are they're not that at all. But you better be able to make a lot of putts. And to do that, you have to have a certain amount of aggressiveness to how you putt. Very few ever putted where they just kind of limp the ball up into the hole every single day.
Yeah.
They just get it. They just kind of get it right to the edge. And then I used to do that too as well when I played young. I had a lot more. My stroke probably looked in some ways maybe a little more silky, but I didn't really make a lot of putts. I was streaky. I might make some, I might go out really one day and do nice, but then I'd have them all kind of running around the edges. And when I watched really high level people that I knew I was not putting at their level and had no chance. I had no chance of beating them on a day-to-day basis. They had a lot more upbeat stroke, and their stroke was certainly more efficient, in my opinion. Wouldn't have as many angles in it, and that's whenever I took notice to make some changes in what I was doing. That was probably with Sam Lab, I'd say maybe 15, 16. I don't remember how many years ago. It was probably 15. And it made a big difference from just a technical aspect. The strategy, I'd like to say, I putted too soft, but once I figured out when to be aggressive and, and when to just kind of let it ding, kind of get down there, funnel down. That was whenever I started to really, from a strategy standpoint, to really improve. A little bit different than technique.
Yeah, interesting.
That may help if they really pay attention to what I was just saying, because you have this whole technical side. We don't go to the strategy. Everybody wants to teach them how to read greens when they get here. And, that's not that complex. Depends on what you're putting on. If you're putting on Bermuda, Poana, or around here, you're not putting on Poana. But Bermuda, and you do have some bent grass golf courses in Texas. There's not very many. And they're radically different. And you need to know the difference between the two. And the biggest difference is, bent doesn't have grain. So you're not going to get that extra runoff and you're not really fighting going into the grain, down grain, which can make side grain make a huge difference. But you need to know that for sure, and I don't disagree. But more importantly, before all that starts, is get your stroke where you're really hitting your line right on top of each other every single time, and then get your speed after that matched up to being realistic. Because if you're hitting it 20 feet by, and you're hitting your line, you're not going to make that putt.
Yeah.
Are you there, Mike?
There we go. We're back.
Sorry about that. Yeah. So that may help you and the people listening in. Hopefully it does from a strategy standpoint versus the difference of building your techniques up. They're radically different.
No, it's funny because I remember the whole putting lesson. I remember the line stuff.
Yep.
And then putting out to the edges of the green and trying to just roll the ball up to the edge of the green, and then putting the peg marks down and putting around. I remember all of that. Yeah, and it's just I think for me, confidence-wise, those straight putts, once they start rolling in, then all of a sudden I'll start looking at the hole hungry, and I can feel. Yeah, I can certainly feel. I've got a chance here. I've got a chance. Whereas those days where that straight putt is not so great. I'm looking at the putt thinking, well, I don't know, there's doubt. But at the moment I'm hitting that line. Yeah, I mean, I've had some good days putting, so I always go back to that lesson. So yeah, it's good. Yeah.
It all starts there, is when you get in. I call it that technique box. When you're in that 6 to 8 foot dead straight, we typically it's around, I'd say right at 8 feet, because that gives you enough if the ball skips too far on your putter when you're getting into a little technical stuff, or if it got too much spin one way or the other, or if it's just offline, you're going to start to pay for it. And like a 3 foot putt and you're hitting it straight, I'm not real big on sitting there hitting a lot of 3-footers. And I tell you why, because if I can get all my players to make it from 8 feet every single time, and say every single time that's unrealistic because of green conditions. But I've got players, when we do the test, they'll be 28 or 29 out of 30. We do a test every single time to test them where they're at. They'll be my high level players. A lot of times they'll go 30 for 30 if it's dead in good condition and all those things. But they're never really ever less than 26. I might be working with a 20 handicap that's 3 out of 30. So you can, we haven't even got into distance putting and, like you said, speed and then line and speed, and then you got lag putting. But a lot of people spend time. I used to do it too, teaching from a real short distance like this. I think it's good to end at that point, but it's not good to start, because you can have a really flawed stroke and have something like this, and the ball still catches an edge and it doesn't spit out. You take that back 4 more feet, that ball's probably that far away from the hole, one side or the other, short or long. And another thing about putting, while we're talking about it, and I have my friend Byron Casper talk about it, because his dad was one of the greatest putters of all time, no doubt. But a lot of times people don't realize this is when they're not good lag putters, it still goes back to that first box. Because if you ever look at their speed when they're hitting from 8 feet when we're doing testing, they'll be this far short, then this far long, and this far short, and this far long. Well, if you take the math on all that and you add 30 more feet to it, now you're going to be 8, 10, 15 feet short or long. And the reason why is for that, they're not hitting it solid. They either have too high a rise angle, they're hitting it in the heel, they're hitting it in the toe, they're hitting it everywhere. Just like a golf shot. If you hit how can you know your distance if you hit one fat with a 7-iron and then you top one? You're going to say, well, I have no idea. You you got to hit the ball solid, and that's the key to putting. Ben Crenshaw always had, I think Harvey Penny taught him to put rubber bands, around, kind of give yourself a little edge off the heel, a little bit, just where the ball will kind of fit in there. And learn how to hit the ball solid. And you'd be surprised at how, again, Harvey was the king of being simple, but he was king of also having his players get the job done.
I've got to write that down, man. Rubber bands.
Rubber bands.
I'm not even joking. I've got to write that down.
Yeah, that's an old one there. I believe. I don't know if that was in the Red Book or if that was just. It might have been a Crenshaw thing, but I think was the one that. But I still use it to this day. And if they're favoring one side or the other, I'll just move it over. So if I feel like, okay, they're doing this and they're hitting that, say they're hitting the toe band, okay, towards the toe, I just ease it in so it makes them have to focus on getting that right in the button. And the sweet spots are a little bit different in every putter, but they're much closer now. They're more like, what you see right in the middle versus, but they are sometimes a little bit different. Sometimes you have to, what we call, find the sweet spot.
Yeah, interesting. I like it.
You have to do that with the driver too. I can tell you an old story about when I was playing. I bought this new driver. I think it was a Mizuno. It was back way back when that was a big DJ Singh had won with this great club or whatever, and it wasn't cheap. And so I got in there and I took it to a soccer field that afternoon, and I started hitting it, and I was like, it's not. If anything, it's going worse than than the one I had. And then I realized that the technology was different, but I found that as a player, I kept hitting it, and I was getting mad that I even bought the club, to be honest. And the sweet spot was much higher, and it was offset to the toe a little bit. The drivers really started to change at that point. I can't remember the name. I wish I could tell everybody the driver. There'd be a lot of players that I guarantee you had that driver, very good players that had it. And it was in a different location. Once I found it, oh man, it was different. It was like, then the ball didn't spin as much, and it did go further than what I had. And I had confidence, which is, instead of, when you don't have confidence, usually that's through performance, but not a good thing. So.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, for sure.
On that, most of your clubs are pretty close to the same in general, but with those drivers and putters, you really need to get in there. The drivers now are a little bit more consistent too, as well, but than what they used to be. But you'll find it's a little higher than probably what you think, and it's a little shade out towards the toe. I'm not going to say toe because it's not, but it's just a shades up and just out just a hair.
If you used to pull a 10-year-old driver out the bag though and give it to the top 10 players in the world, what do you think you'd see? What do you think you'd see difference-wise?
Just gave them, and you don't let them practice with it.
No, you let them have a little practice with it. You give it to them for half an hour. What would you think you'd see? Not much difference.
I don't think so. Not much. I don't think it'd be radically different for some players that maybe weren't good drivers, because now the drivers, it seems like they hold the MOIs a little bit better. Resistance as far as torque when they're hitting is better. Shafts are better. But 10 years ago, it's not too much. But if you take it back, say like 20, back when I was probably 18 to 20, back in those days, man, you're swinging, a graphite shaft then, there's no telling what was going on with it. The head weighed like a sledgehammer, and looks like a hybrid now, and they were just much harder to hit. They're great training aids, in my opinion, if you can find an old junk driver just to have fun with it. And swinging, they're not bad. I wouldn't say I'd do it 500 times a day, but they're good to just kind of get a feel, because then when you come, if you hit 15 balls just messing around, don't take it serious, and don't get all mad if you don't hit it well. Don't sit out there all day and try to hit it well, but hit 15 balls with it and grab your club. And you could have a club from Walmart. Go get it from you could make whatever. If you're making fun of your buddy for a cheap driver, it's going to look better and perform better than that stuff back then, most likely.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's I think they would do 10 years ago. Now, if you got back, like I said, if you got back to persimmon, there would be you would start seeing more separation. But I still think your best players in the world still be your best players in the world. Yeah,
for sure.
Identical, personally.
Yeah, see, that's what fascinates me. I think the whole movement aspect. I think that's probably what fascinates me the most, because I think that's where I've reached my limits in terms of. I've got this belief system that if your body you know, like if your body can only move, if like the map, your brain and how you operate your body can only move to a certain, in a certain way, then that's going to be your, that could be not the limiting factor in how you score, because obviously that's like a different conversation. But in terms of the performance of your ball striking and distance off the tee, you know, that fascinates me. And what can be done. You must know players who are in their 40s, 50s, 60s and can still, you know, I think even when I was over, there was one guy that you said he played on the PGA Tour, walking around, and you said you could just hand him a club now and he'd smash that ball, you know, 300 down the fairway.
Yeah,
you know.
I can't remember exactly who that was, but well, there's a bunch of them that run around Austin, you know. So, and I really don't, but I think it was the guy that was probably even outside of the, I think he was in his 60s. Is that the one you're talking about?
Yeah. Because maybe you pointed him out and you said that guy played on the tour, and I think maybe even won on the tour. And I'm like, wow, you know. And
it's a very deal, and he big kind of he's a tall, big dude, and could swing it. I mean, he was very well known around that area. And like I said, I think he had one tour PGA Tour win, and he might have had more than that on the Champions. But he could just. You give him a golf club, he's gonna smash it. You know? Yeah. And there's a great video of Ben Hogan. I don't know whose video it is, but it's an old clip, and it's been out since 20 some odd years. But it shows him at a beach at his like his family, and I guess another family just joined him. And you know, he kind of just walks out. He always had bad knees from that car accident, and he just walks. When he walks up, you really think he's gonna probably fall over or hit it about. Walks in and his legs are doing this, you know, and I'm not going to try to demonstrate, but that's about how he walked in. And then next thing you know, he swings like a 20-year-old, just, you know, just zips it. And I mean, it looked like Ben Hogan, and he was 70 something years old, and he barely could just ease his way up to the ball. Yeah. And then all like he woke up. And then once he got,
amazing, isn't it?
He didn't have to walk anymore at that point. All he had to do shows that video shows him doing a lot of slow motion drills. I'd heard he had done them prior to that. You know, like I'd heard it. You know, you hear a lot of things out there, and some of them are not accurate, and some of them maybe are. But I'd always heard he did a lot of slow motion training, and this video proves that he definitely did it. How much? It looked like a lot, because when I say slow motion, he would do drills. You know, he would take it up here, and it was just, you know, I'm not trying to make his swing because I can't do it, but it was just very, very slow. And it would come all the way through. And he did several of them. And you can find that video. I don't even know the label, but I'll try to send it to you. And if you're watching this, just go to YouTube. And I don't know how you just search Ben Hogan. I don't know what title you put in, but you'll find it if you look for it. And,
yeah, interesting.
House or by the ocean, or slow motion training might have been one of them. But something you'll find it if you Google it. And
yeah,
incredible. You know, just the way they don't really lose it. So if you put somebody like that in this area with the same thing, they're gonna. I'm not saying they're gonna go run away from every tournament and all that. I have no idea, but they wouldn't be holding the back seat. They'd win most likely, probably about as many as they won before. I would say, like Jack Nicklaus. You know, he was. Man, there's that he was so powerful. There's maybe not anybody even on the tour when Jack was younger that is more powerful than him as of right now. It'd be pretty close. I don't think he'd be 50 yards past everybody, but he might.
What's your best example of someone who, like a student of yours, who's come to you who didn't really have much of an athletic motion, and then you've maybe helped them with like kettlebell training and some of the Tai Chi stuff, and then now they can smash it? Have you got examples of like people who've come in with like, and you look at it and you think, oh man, they've not got anything athletic about them, but then they've, you know, through training, they've really developed like speed, power, precision?
Yeah, I haven't seen anything that supersedes, you know, Tai Chi. Once I went through a long version of it to learn about. I knew what I wanted to do the whole time. I just wanted to modify it for what we could do for golf, because there were some things I'd read about Fa Jing and seen in Fa Jing and they're really, one thing about Tai Chi, they don't really rush anything. So they're not looking to revise it for a golf, baseball, or whatever. They can if you found the right person. But pretty much I went through the different styles, and when I really believe that it's about power development, and it's coordination based. So everything you're doing, getting your upper body to get coordinated. And if you watch a lot of the movements, there's movements that are almost identical to golf when you get into some of the sword training, or if you got into some of the staff and all that. But if they were to go at your legs or whatever, or at your ankles, like a move, it was here, it was a block, and it would go that way. It would look very similar to, because some of these it might not, or this stuff. Sticks are not really good. And I'll say this about martial arts: you do a lot of sticks. I'm not saying it's not good to develop your wrist and all that, but it's teaching a hit. Sword training is the secret. Because when you do a sword, it's a slash. See, so it's like this.
Oh, there we go. We're back.
Sorry about that. But no, with the sword, you're dealing with the edge like this. You're not. It's not a. There's more dimensions really to a stick in a way. But again, a stick is typically it's about striking this way and kind of stabbing in a way, if that makes sense. Whereas a sword is a slashing. So when you're hitting, if you think about it, you don't want to snap your wrist out and try to fling all your energy and whack something like that. You want your energy to be slashing through the play go. You watch the best players, it's a slash. As soon as they go out and they try to snap both wrists straight like this, that's where you're going to run into a lot of issues. Ball could run with it. You just name a shot. It could happen. Could be good, but you're going to not be near as good as somebody that knows how to slash through here. So we used to do a drill with Wes that was a good one, that was reverse knife grip, and I just turned it into using it for golf. But he loved it because it got rid of this kind of punch. It's really hard if you have it in the reverse grip like this, and we even modified to where he could actually. He wanted to hit some balls with it, but that took away this. If you do this with that back grip on it, again, it's a drill, not playing. When you do this snap, the club will actually come out of your hands.
Yeah.
But you have a more of a slashing feeling, and that's very important for distance control, very important for your launch angle and your spin rates for your driver. All those are connected to what I'm just showing right there. So that's why I love the sword stuff. I don't say that. That's the first time I've said that on any of this stuff, talking about the sword. That's one of my little secrets that I like to keep. But that goes back to the Tai Chi. And then you have circular movements, which most people move like a block of wood. They just, as I do a kettlebell swing and they move like a stiff board. There's no flow to it, And same as golf, they don't move. And that's the one thing is Tai Chi kind of teaches you how to move. So I had several players that came in were very uncoordinated, and not flexible, and they were older. And I would, once you would start seeing that Tai Chi, it was very hard for them at first because that was their biggest problem. But once you'd start seeing them kind of soften up and make these silky kind of flowing movements, you'd start seeing a lot better golf swing as far as rotationally, and you'd see less hit. Very much the power generation was crazy. Everything got better, and then you'd come back into kettlebells, and with kettlebells, what that provided was more of a connection to the dots. That's why it helped me so much, because flexibility was never. The two things I was really good at was flexibility and coordination. If I was off in an area, there's people that were a lot more connected joint to joint. So I found that helped me a lot as a player. It helped a lot of others, but I felt like in general, as a whole, it was the Tai Chi that was far more powerful. And then after you got them through the Tai Chi, you'd start to more connect the dots and really try to connect the body and all that, the upper body and lower body. So it was more, when I say connected, so it's not like spaghetti legs, that's swing connected. It's more joint to joint, all the way up and down. It looks more together.
Yeah, interesting.
And you get sometimes with connected, like that's a big word, because what does that really even mean? But it's more like, I'm talking about this part of the body. Your arms, you still want to swing like an elephant's trunk, like we talk about. We want the arms to swing freely, wide and freely, and all this. But when you get in here and you're stiff with your arms and you're up here like this and like this, that's where people get into trouble. So that was, again, that goes to Tai Chi. They taught how to separate the arms from your, the upper body and the lower body. And so that's the most success I ever had. I haven't found anything to supersede it. Not yoga, not any of it. Yoga, you're dealing more static, and so you might joint to joint stability, balance, a lot of great things, but you didn't get the flow. You know, that whipping. Well, like Fa Jing is just whipping energy. So
it's funny because recently in lockdown, because we're still in kind of lockdown over here, I've kind of I've got these things out, right? So these are called Freeline Skates, and one of the reasons I got them out is I went on. I've been for a lesson with a guy called Marcus Bell. You might have heard of him. He's quite popular coach, and he had the force plate, you know, with the pressures. My pressures into the ground, just hopeless. And what was interesting is, like, and you'll know about this because we've talked snowboarding before, right? Is that I snowboard this direction, yeah, but I golf that direction.
That's right.
You know, so I always snowboard like right foot forward, but with golf, you know, I'm kind of going to the left. So during lockdown, I've been going out on the skates because they're independent both sides, and I've been practicing skating the same way that I play golf, so left foot forward. And with those things, if you're skating uphill, like there's definitely a flow to it, because that's what I love about it. It feels very much like snowboarding. When you're going uphill, you have to generate pressure and push and push and push. And I could do that easily this direction, but this direction not at all. And what's funny actually is, having done that, even just running around the garden, kicking a football with my left foot has just become incredibly good. I mean, I don't play football anymore, but I'm always, you know, doing something in the garden, some kind of movement. And just from skating, like firing up my nervous system and my neurology by forcing the other side. I don't know, what do you do when you snowboard? Do you snowboard the same direction you play golf? Or do you snowboard the other way?
Either way.
The other way. Oh, interesting. I've got no idea whether it's going to make a difference or not, but I certainly feel a lot better on my feet now. I feel a lot more grounded, and I definitely feel like my left hip has freed up a bit more from being able to do that motion, because at first there was a lot of stiffness. So I don't know whether that's going to cross over or not, but it's interesting to explore these different things to see whether or not it can cross over to to golf. So I like about the ice hockey. I'd love to come across to your ice hockey camp, because I can't skate. I mean, I can ice skate a little bit, but my brother used to play ice hockey in Canada, and we've got a player at the club who hits the ball miles, and he was an ex ice hockey player for the MK Lightning. And it always makes me think, oh man, I should just get on the ice and just be hitting slap shots until I can stabilize and bang.
I think that the thing with hockey is there's more of a natural instinct, to strike. And I'm not saying you have to be conscious of lower body, but there is, you're on ice. So take somebody that's never been on ice before and put them on there. They're going to be, first thing they're going to be is more conscious about the ice.
Sure.
And so that's going to first help kind of start to stabilize there. And then it gets kind of simple after that. When I say not being that hockey simple, but that has nothing to do with nothing to do. But I think then if you learn how to, you get comfortable there and on the ice, and you get stabilized for your strike, and what they're teaching you, which I don't know the techniques and so forth, but you are using a straight face very much like a putter in golf. And so anything they do with it, and they shift angles, push it out or in or up or down or along the ground and they can change probably mid strike, you probably hit it and then fling it or something crazy, I would assume. But it's just like a putter at that point. So it's just a straight strike, but the first thing first is you're not striking before you're stabilizing. So yeah. I think, and that's why they see these tree trunk legs with a lot of these players, and they're just very stable, and they don't have bad, you don't see a lot of, not seeing all this hip spin and hip thrust and, holding the upper body back and flinging up at it like that, because you're going to end up on your backside. And in golf, see all that, but you can get penalized from a lot of injuries, and or it could be mental injuries from hitting it all over the yard, and timing issues where it's kind of the same. We like to strike and stay more along, I call it the surface line, but just the ground line or ice line or whatever. It's just we like our body to be more this way so we can hit versus working more behind and up and rolling, so forth.
Yeah.
Certainly not over either. And think about it is too. Think about it, somebody that's comes way over the top and across it. I don't know if you'd see that much in hockey, because they would be up. You're going to fall right on their face.
Yeah, exactly. It just seems like the best thing to, seems like the best thing to get people involved in. That sounds brilliant, that thing that you're doing with the ice hockey coach,
Yeah, I'm glad he came to me and asked me some questions, because I was all over, because the reason why was the the number one crossover sport I've ever seen to golf is, with my eyes and experience and observation, is by far and away hockey, not tennis. Everybody thinks tennis and baseball and tennis, and it's not. You're playing where the ball's level a lot of time. I know it can change up and down, but it's off the ground. In hockey, it's on the ground, and very few. Even in soccer is different, because you're not using a striking instrument. You're using your own body, which I think is awesome, but you're not using like a striking instrument. You don't have your kind of your weapon, so to speak. You're kind of creating it, and I think soccer has a lot of unbelievable drills for us too. All the cutting, lateral shifts, and being able to go bilaterally at any given time. No question, that's going to help.
Yeah, I think any kind of, this is the stuff we talk. I mean, my movement coach, he's over 60, and in fact, he got into those skates with me as well. Like, because I've got some people like, oh man, if I went on those Freeline Skates, I'd fall on my ass. Like, well, my movement coach is in his 60s, and he's done a whole load of dance. He does everything. It's like, he can do that, dances. He's right into tango at the moment. But every single discipline, you always sort of meet. You always seem to meet a demon at some point, and it's like, there's always something to learn about your body, and what you have to overcome to then move to the next level. And I found it funnily enough, I found it with skating, I found it with golf, I found it with salsa dancing, where I'd get to a point and I'd look at myself and I think, I'm okay, but you look at the guys that are really fluid, there's something different. What's the difference? And it's interesting how, I think with a lot of these different movement disciplines, there's always, it doesn't matter what you go to, you'll take your mental map, you'll take your physical, like your meat, and you'll try and apply it to that thing, and you'll get so far. And then usually if you get beyond that in whatever discipline you're working on, it seems to cross over to everything. It's kind of, I think that whole side of performance I find really interesting, and exploring what it takes to kind of evolve yourself to the next level, and then how that can play into your favorite game, which for me is, for you obviously is golf. So yeah, it's fascinating.
Yeah, and I think for most golfers, just getting started with something is better than nothing at all. Getting started with just getting maybe it's just starting to walk for the first couple weeks and kind of getting moving. Just
yeah. Oh yeah, exactly. Yeah, one of the guys I played with, 77 years old, right? He doesn't, going back to health and nutrition, all that kind of stuff, he doesn't really goes home, he drinks beer every night. When his wife's not there, he'll make himself like a banana sandwich. He's got no skills in the kitchen. He's 77 years old, and he just turns up every single day. Sometimes, we're like, oh God, he's here again. But he turns up every single day, tells the same stories every single day. But he just walks the golf course, and compared to everybody else of a similar sort of age, he just destroys them because he's out. And he's, to me, that's why it's kind of interesting when, talking about health and fitness and golf. Golf to me just ticks every box. You're outdoors. The sunshine is the most important health principle in existence. Like, anyone who sits and tells you supplements or nutrition, this, that, and the other, is talking junk. If you're not getting sunshine, you can be on the best diet, taking the best supplements, spending hundreds of pounds every month. If you're not out in the sunshine, you are missing out on the number one thing. It's the number one antiviral. So right now, in this climate, everyone, we're all being told to stay indoors, but the sun's the number one thing. So you're outdoors, you're walking. You don't need any for longevity. You don't need anything more than walking. If you're only interested in longevity, you can slam your joints with running. You can beat yourself into the ground. But if you're just walking, it doesn't get any better. And visually, you've got color, and it's no wonder people are so addicted to it. Anyone who wants health and longevity, just take up golf, and maybe ease up on the beer, that kind of thing. But if you're doing it really regular, like this guy that I play with, 77 years old, he trumps everything. Yeah. Trumps everything, I think. Yeah,
you come. How it is. If you, some people don't even think about it, and probably shouldn't, but it's, you know, how you come out and everybody's getting going, warming up. The round's pretty quiet and all that, and it has nothing to do with drinking beer or any of that stuff. It might have a little bit at the end, but you know, as a round starts to accumulate and they play 3 or 4 hours, they start ribbing each other, having fun, and then
Yeah, exactly.
You know, makes for a great. First get out there, it's kind of like you know, they're wobbling around, and then once the round starts, they're starting to get competitive, and that sunshine's beating on you. And if the sun's not even out, it's still better being out. It's better than being inside.
Well, even if the sun's not out, it's still coming through the clouds to a degree. It's still going to impact your physiology, and as you say, the camaraderie, the community, the connection. That's one of the things that right now is not so great. Everyone's isolated, and the human body, the human spirit needs connection. And again, what does golf provide? Unless you're playing on, you know, as a one ball, it provides all of that community, connection, the whole lot. I mean, it's just it's like it's the best of the best. And there's big science behind all of that, and you could talk about it ad nauseum, you know, really. There's a lot of science behind all of that.
Yeah, and you know, that's like it is here. We're doing more rounds this year than we've done maybe in the history here at the golf course, and it's because, you know, people are tired of being indoors. You know, they don't want to get out with you know, whoever and do whatever just to get out. And I'm glad, and that's I know it's not ever. There's a lot of places where I'm not sure what regulations are right now everywhere, but you know, I'm here in Texas, and we can play, and man, even when people weren't supposed to be playing, trust me, people were showing up and playing. And, you know, it's smart because I'm like you. It's, you know, respect this thing or whatever. But, you know, I don't see how sitting in and staring at the walls and just eating like a mad person and probably drinking is going to benefit anybody during this. I don't see how that makes your health system and your immune system stronger.
Nah, it's I mean, that's the problem though. You just don't get the narrative from the government, which is because no point has our government said, right, there's a health crisis. Here's what you need to do for your health and for your immune system. Nothing. The whole system is, you know, I mean, all they're talking about is the next vaccine. All they're talking about is the, you know, the drugs that could help, which, you know, is fair enough. But there's nothing for the person, nothing for personal. It's just fear. But anyway, we don't want to go down that route. But yeah, golf ticks all the boxes for me. I mean, that's one of the reasons. It's just, I just feel lucky that I love it as much as I do, because I know when I go out there, I'm just enjoying it. Like, that's just what I'm doing. But I know that in the back of my mind, tick, 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 all these boxes being ticked. And, you know, I think that's the reason why I'm still young, you know, in comparison to sort of people of maybe the same sort of age who are just starting to, you can see them winding down mentally and emotionally and everything. But, you know, there you go. It's fascinating.
Well, so let's let everybody know. We start to wind it down. I know we're going to do it again. We'll keep going with this. There's a lot more to talk about in your world, and I think our world too, and we can have some fun with it as we go along. But how can people find you and work with you and so forth?
Well, the thing is, I mean, I don't really do much one-on-one with people anymore. And, you know, I'm not really a great one for promoting myself. I'm kind of lucky, and from the point of view, you know, we've got a lot of existing customers in the UK. I know a lot of your viewers are probably USA based. And even I mean, one of the things I was going to chat about today, but we kind of never really got there in the end, is just, you know, like, I suppose different strategies people can employ for their health. Even my book, which, I mean, look how big it is. You know, I don't even really promote this much anymore, because being a bit of a perfectionist, I'd probably rewrite a few different sections in there. There's some bits.
We all do that.
You know, some bits that I like, some bits. But yeah, I mean, if people want to find me, if people are really interested, they'll find me. And if they're not that, you know, if next time we chat, we can chat maybe more about some of the specific things people can target if they want to, you know, if they really want to maximize their health. But I think, God, the beauty of talking to golfers, my advice, if I had one piece of advice, would play more golf. You know, just play more golf, go out. If you're outdoors more often, I always say I think the healthiest people are people with dogs, because they usually go out first thing in the morning and walk their dog. And seeing sunlight at the start of the day just as a little kind of top secret tip, seeing sunlight at the start of the day, it actually sets a chain reaction going that will condition how your body and your physiology reacts at the end of the day, which then will allow you to sleep better. And if you sleep better, you're going to regenerate better, you're going to feel better, you're going to set up a cycle of positivity. But seeing that natural sunlight first thing in the morning, it's really important to condition your circadian biology. The best person who could teach you all about that is a guy called Dr. Jack Kruse. And again, this guy he's a neurosurgeon, but he goes into so much detail and depth and science about what goes in the body, that essentially his prescription is get out and see the sunshine, see it the first thing in the morning, sunrise, see it as much as you can in the day, expose as much of your body to it as possible. And if you're ever having any kind of health challenge, take yourself out of the environment that you're in, drop yourself in an environment where you can maximize that, such as, I know he talks about going to Mexico, getting on that beach. I mean, everyone loves going on vacation. That's the reason why, because, they physiologically, so many things happen to the body when you're in that environment. And, we're lucky with golf. We can put shorts on and get a little bit on our legs, a little bit on our arms. But yeah, nothing better than being outdoors. And it's the cornerstone of everything that I sort of do. So yeah, if people want to find me, they'll find me.
Yeah, I know.
If you want to chat again, we'll chat again,
Yeah, well, it's awesome. And like I said, I would like to have you again, maybe a week or two. I'm traveling next week, so I won't be doing a whole lot. Maybe in a couple of weeks or when you're ready. We'll talk a little more and some golf fundamentals, and you can go into more of your fundamentals of health, and we'll just keep it rolling. I just wanted to introduce you to everybody, all the golfers that are tuning in, and I know it'll help them and just give them some really good ideas, and maybe they learn a few things with golf as well.
Yeah, I suppose I could finish with one question for people can have a little think about, and then if they're interested, when we do it again, we'll maybe sort of dive into that a little bit more. But one of the things that I built a course which actually isn't available right now, so it's not like a sales pitch, but the course was really built around just a simple concept of you look at the top 10 killers in today's society, like heart disease, cancer, you've got iatrogenic death, which is like death by doctors, got respiratory based diseases, which is kind of where we're at right now with the whole COVID thing, accidents, Alzheimer's, diabetes, kidney based disorders, influenza, pneumonia, down to suicide. We got top 10 killers. For me, when I was putting a course together, I was like, okay, so if I was to have a conscious strategy to avoid each of those, what would I do? What do I do right now that I consciously know is going to help me steer away from what's killing most people? Because if you steer away from it, you've got a better chance of them meeting optimal health. And for me, optimal health can help with performance. I mean, you mentioned John Daly earlier, and it's kind of interesting because I suspect everything I talk about with regards to what a person can do, he maybe didn't do. But I suspect one thing that I do talk about inside the course, which he had a very strong sense of self, and that connection to self and that congruence with self, that's going to lead to good performance as well. And, and then on the flip side of that, we talk about, if those things are like the slow killers, we talk about what's the fastest way to kill someone other than shoot them, cut off their oxygen supply. What's the next fastest? Cut off their water supply. What's the next? Cut off their food supply. Then you cut off people, which is kind of what the whole COVID thing is. You cut off people's connection to the earth. They're the kind of things that when you start to understand that, and you merge those two together, you can build a really comprehensive health plan, which is targeted for you. And that's not someone telling you do this or follow this diet or do that, but it's by you using your intelligence to piece together, fundamentals, which then effectively builds a map that you can use in your life with all the different things that you do. So maybe we can kind of chat about that next time, and people will find that kind of interesting,
I think they will. All right, Mike. Well, hey, man, it was awesome as always. Wanted to see you this way, but then to go over everything with your knowledge and being on the show to help us out and move forward with this, because you have a lot. I know you have a wealth of knowledge to share, and it was awesome having you on, my friend.
Yeah, listen, it was brilliant being on. It's good to recap some of the things that I learned over there, and I think the first thing I'm going to go and look for is rubber bands.
All right. Well, I hope that works out for you, man. And I will be talking soon. I know that. Take care of yourself.
Yeah, take care, man. Good to see you.
See you, bud.